Today, I'm going to share some tips, tricks, and strategies for backing up, and reviewing, and learning from your images while you're out on the road creating them. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. So today I'm coming from kind of an unusual place. I'm in El Jefe, the Sprinter van. Those of you who've been out on Western photography workshops with Rick and David Archer and I would recognize El Jefe. But for those uninitiated, I'm in the Sprinter in sort of the workshop school bus and also my family's vacation rig. So I'm out with my family on the Oregon coast. We're actually yurt camping with a group of their friends from grade school and some of those parents, and having them off in the yurt actually provides me with a nice spot in the evening to back up, look at my images, learn from what I've shot over the course of the day. And that kind of brings me to an interesting question I've heard quite a bit over the past few months is, what should I do with my images when I'm out on the road? We just ran a workshop in Scotland. We had a lot of people asking, well, how do I back up? How do I view my images? Is that something I can do with just my phone or a tablet? I'm going to talk about some of those questions and give you what I think of as answers to them and some strategies for doing just that, and some ways to grow as you're out photographing on the road instead of waiting till you get back home to see what mistakes you're making and being incapable of correcting them while you're on the journey out photographing. Everything that I talk about in this video is available over at my hudsonhenry.com/ATS links page. You can just click up above. So hard drives, computer peripherals, things that I'm talking about are always available there. Those links help me out. I appreciate your thinking about using them. And what I would suggest that you bring with you on a trip is generally some form of laptop. If you're gonna be on a trip where you can bring a bunch of camera equipment, you can usually fit at least a small 13-inch MacBook Air. I would really recommend that sort of be the minimal photo review and backup system that you bring, because if you're working with a camera, like on this trip, I'm only working with my Leica Q3, and that camera creates 60 megapixel files. Each one of those is very, very large. If you're going to try to use any form of tablet, whether it's Mac operating system or Android operating system, bringing those photos in and storing them on a big removable hard drive is just going to be incredibly time consuming, slow, and cumbersome. So my recommendation is either you choose to just bring a lot of big, expensive memory cards and deal with all of the data when you get home, which is a situation that I would only do in the most extreme circumstances, backpacking across the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. That's how I worked with images. When I climbed Denali filming a documentary, the whole film crew, we brought tons of big, expensive memory cards and stored those in Pelican cases with tape over them the minute that they were shot. That precious data had to come home, get logged, cataloged, days of going through it all, finding what was good and what was not. In general, even on a trip like I just took 4 weeks in Europe, I bring my laptop. I think it's fine, as I said, to bring a MacBook Air and some fast hard drives. And I'm going to have some suggestions for how you set those hard drives up. I think it's important to have a separate hard drive for your computer and operating system, usually the internal fast SSD. In my case, I have another internal fast SSD drive on this computer for data, the photos and video that I capture. For many of you, if you were using something like a MacBook Air, the little dock case dock that I talked about a few weeks ago, you can see that video with the link up above, or it'll be in this video's full description along with other links that I talk about. This can plug into your MacBook Air or MacBook Pro. If you have one that has a limited number of Thunderbolt connections, it can plug in via Thunderbolt or USB-C to your computer and gives you SD, micro SD, compact flash express A, compact flash express B, a couple of very fast USB outputs, and still has a power delivery input that can be charging your computer through the dock while you're using it. So this uses one port to do a whole lot of stuff, and then you just bring these small, fast hard drives. I prefer Samsung T7s, and I'll talk about why, and I'll show you how I use them as I bring some images into my computer from the Leica Q3 from today out at the coast. We had a really good time on the beach, playing around with the kids in the campground, going to the Oregon Aquarium. So I'll show you my process and why I think it's important that as you're working out in the field, you bring your images in each and every day. My computer has a built-in SD drive. I'm going to just install that card. I've got my fast Lightroom catalog drive. I think that should be on a separate drive as well. I'll talk about that as I walk through this. I'm going to plug that guy in. We're going to import these images. And as we do it, we're going to be looking at them and learning what worked and didn't work through the course of the day. So I'll go through, I'll do a bit of culling. It won't take long. I'm not doing full edits. I'm just marking what I might want to edit when I get back to the studio and I have my big, beautiful 32-inch color managed screen. I just want to note what I might want to edit later, what I want to delete probably without actually deleting it. And as I'm doing it, I'll take a look at my favorite images and see if there were errors that I made that maybe I can do better when I'm out shooting tomorrow. All right, let's have a look. All right, well, here I am. I'm using my PC, and I'm going to import the images from this Leica Q3. I've already put the memory card in the computer. If I open up my Windows File Explorer, you can see that what I've got attached to this PC are these 4 data sources. And I do want you to think about those being sort of separate lanes for information to move into the motherboard and be computed, and all of them having their each individual lane makes everything that much faster, particularly these 3, not so much the memory card that we're going to import the photos, but your Lightroom master catalog. If you're using Lightroom Classic like I am, I think having that catalog on a fast SSD drive like a Samsung T7 and no other data on there, so that Lightroom Classic can access all that database information, the preview files, the information about how the image is being edited. It can write and read from that drive without having a log jam with the photos themselves or with the operating system or with the Adobe software. All right, the photos themselves, they go on some kind of a data drive. For me, I have a built-in 4 terabyte drive that has nothing but data. It's either going to be photographs or video that I've shot for the YouTube series, or drone footage, or whatever it is that I'm working with. The actual data I'm capturing, my photos, that goes on the data drive. That could be another external hard drive for you, potentially plugged into a dock, like that dock case dock I talked about. And then you've got your operating system drive, the one that's built into the computer. If you're using something like a MacBook Air, that's the only one inside the computer that has your operating system, whether it's Windows or Mac, and it has the Adobe software like Lightroom Classic or whatever your photo editing software and organizing software of choice is. So that's what we're dealing with here. Those are the drives. And what I'm going to do is bring these photos from the Leica Q3 into Lightroom Classic. So let's go ahead and open up Lightroom Classic here. And you can see, I'm working with that catalog folder of mine that I use, whether I'm working with my Mac Studio Ultra here, connected to my big network attached storage with all the photos from the last 20 years, or I'm working with this laptop out in the field, just working with the images that I'm capturing on a trip. And you can see, I can see all the photos, from 1996 to this year, and I can go through and see them. They're not actually attached because my big network attached storage, or if you were working with a big hard drive or set of hard drives back at home or in your studio, those aren't connected, but you can still see all the information. You can see the image big. You can see how it was edited. It's not attached to the computer at the moment, but you still get information about it. Now, we'll go ahead and close down our folder view. We're here in the library section of Lightroom Classic, and we've got this import button here. That's what we're about to do. We're going to bring in these photos from that Leica Q3, all right? And when we think about, I won't go into a whole bunch of process about the import process. That's going to be in Rick and my organizing course. It's coming out really soon. But you're taking from the thing on the left, the Leica Q3's SD drive. That's on the left is what we are importing. We're choosing whether to copy those, move them. I usually copy when I'm moving from the memory card into the computer's hard drive. And we can do some cool stuff with these. I generally use presets for this. You can sort of set up a whole bunch of stuff here and save it as a preset. I have a preset for when I'm importing on the road called Road SSD. And yeah, that says that the Europe folder is not available. So I'm going to have to navigate to that. I could do that in the destination window, but I could also up here just say, I want to go to another destination, and I would navigate just like you would in your operating system. I want to put the pictures on my data drive and mobile data, in photography, and in 2024. That's the folder we're going to, all right? I want my previews to be standard. I don't want to import any suspected duplicates. I don't need to build any smart previews for working with when they're offline. I'm going to rename my files using my file naming template. Again, we can go into detail about templates in our organizing course, but I've got one where it names it by the year, month, day, camera name, shoot name, and then the serial number that the camera puts in. I don't want to call it Scotland. I'm going to call it Oregon Coast Camping. All right. I don't apply any developed presets. Some of you might want to apply a preset that you've created to all of the images coming through from a specific camera. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add my copyright information. I've created another preset here. We'll talk more about that kind of thing when we do our organizing course. I don't want to keyword these things as Europe and Scotland anymore. I want to call it Oregon Coast. See, it's already seen that before. I can just hit the right arrow. Kids, maybe family, friends. Done. Okay. And then when it comes to destination, we can open that up, and you can see it's going into 2024, and it would create a folder called Scotland. I don't want it to be Scotland. You know, if this were a big trip and I were doing a whole bunch of images, I would want it to be sort of organized in the year. You know, like when I was in Scotland, it was in October, so 2024, 10 for October, and then Scotland. That'll sort of line everything up as it's coming in. But what I'm just going to put this in, well, you know, let's do it that way. I'll say 11 for November, Oregon. Ooh, look at me, I can't type. Oregon Coast Camping. Boom. Into one folder. Some people like to organize by day. Some people like to organize by month. I just like to put all the photos from an individual trip into an individual folder. Boom. All right. All right, so you can see that's where it's going to go. It's going to go into the data drive, photography 2024, and it's going to create this folder, 2024, 11 Oregon Coast Camping. Boom, all right? That's it. All I have to do is hit import, and it's going to start bringing those photos in. And they will be accessible. They'll be local. So as those come in, it's going to take a little time. They're starting to roll in now. They're big files, 60 megapixels. And it's going to be building previews for all those as they go. So I'll let that load in. I'll speed it up while that happens. All right, and here we go. We've got all of our images loaded, previews rendered. Took a few minutes, but 132 60 megapixel Q3 files from the past day of camping are all right here. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point is just kind of run through and have a look, mark images that should obviously be deleted, like this underexposed shot, or ones that aren't well focused or composed. I'm going to run through really fast, and I'm going to go ahead and mark the images. And I'm going to make sure that when I go in here, I'm going to hit my view and open up the toolbar. That's the T key. I'd like to have the filter bar open too when I'm in the grid view. You can use the backslash for that. And I have a preset filter that's my initial cull. And you know, in the organizing course that Rick and I do, we'll talk about how to set that up in Lightroom Classic. But all it really does is creates a filter for me where I'm only seeing images that are either not flagged at all or flagged as a pick. We're not seeing the ones that are flagged for future rejection to delete later down the road. So all I have to do is hit an image like this and hit the X key, and it disappears. All right, it's not gone. If I turned on the filter so that I could see rejected images, it's flagged for rejection. If I go through and I get all the images that I want from this trip, you know, it'll be really easy for me to get that back. And I'm gonna look at these images big. I'm gonna close my left panel by clicking that little triangle over there. I'm gonna hit the E key, or I could use the toolbar to hit the loop view. You can see how it shows you that the E key is gonna do that for you. This first image I shot, obviously, you know, I was just kind of warming up. The kids' feet are cut off. The adults look exhausted from the drive to the coast. I'll hit the X key on that guy. You know, these two of the kids doing a little conga line. I like the look of that one. You know, I might give that a 2-star rating. This one of Stacy, she's gonna hate. Get rid of that. I like this one of Megan and Sybil. I like this one of Axel. I'm marking those as 2 stars. You can see that 2 stars means a super interesting image. You know, this one of Axel, maybe I actually like that one better. I'll change this to 1 star and make that the 2-star image. You know, I run through kind of like that. If I have 2 I want to compare, sometimes I'll click both of them and hit the survey view or the N key. That lets me look at them both nice and big and pick which one I like better. Yeah, you know, this one I might even want to delete after having a look at this one. I'm not zooming in, I'm not checking focus yet. I'm just marking what looks interesting, what looks like an obvious deletion. I'm running through all 132 of those fast, and we'll jump back and see where we're standing after that. All right, so it took me about 5 minutes or so. I went through them all. You can see that I only have 78 remaining of the 132 photos that I just didn't immediately mark for deletion. But let's go in, let's look at the grid view really fast. And I'm gonna go into my second preset filter in my filter bar here. I'm gonna go to my second cull, and that's only gonna show me images that I marked as 2 stars. You know, if we go back to that initial cull setting, you know, and again, I'll show you how to build these presets when we do our organizing course. You'll see I've got a combination of 1-star images that are interesting, but not maybe my favorites that I know I'm gonna wanna have a look at closer and see if I wanna edit. My 2-star images, which are my favorites from the shoot, and you know, maybe I probably wanna go in and have a closer look at those, see if I wanna edit them and share them with the group. And images that I just couldn't quite delete, you know, but they're, you know, and I'm not deleting anything yet. You know, if I turn off all these filters, you'll see there's a ton of images marked as deletion in here as well. But we're gonna cull down to just those images that I thought were most interesting. You can see I've only got 37 of the 132 photos, which is actually a pretty big percentage. And so what I'm gonna do now is run through and have a second look at those, and ones that I really, really like, I'm gonna mark as flagged. How do I do that? Well, that's as easy as just hitting the P key. You could right click and say, set flag as flagged, but you can also just hit that P key to mark it as flagged. And I'll probably reject some more and move some down from 2 stars to 1 star, but I'm gonna run through really quick. You know, so about 5 minutes for that first fast run through. We're gonna go through these even quicker, and then I'll show you where I'm at after that. It doesn't look like too many more images fell out. We still have 34, so a few got downgraded. If I go into the grid view here and we have a look at our third cull, which is gonna be just those that are flagged in 2 stars, we're down to 27 images. That's still a lot from 132. If I were doing a landscape shoot or a wildlife shoot, I would expect less, but because this is family and friends and we're really looking for some images just to share with our friends, I'm being a little bit more liberal with what gets picked here. But you know, this is the point at which I would run through and select all of them. I just hit the Control A key if you're on Mac, Command A. You could also go up to Edit and select all. But what we're gonna do at this point is in Library, here in the Library module, go to the Library menu, and I'm gonna go down to Previews, and I'm gonna say Build One-to-One Previews. And that's gonna run through and generate one-to-one previews for all of these images, full 60 megapixel JPEG previews associated with these raw images. And the reason for that is to run through and check sharpness. You know, some of these are shot at extremely wide aperture, like this one of Sybil, our friend Brooke and Megan's little girl. And you can see, I nailed her nose with the Leica. I did not nail her eyes. That means she's going to get unflagged. Boom, no longer gonna be a pick. Thomas, by contrast, is nice and sharp. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run through and make sure that all these images that matter are actually sharp where they need to be and cull through that way. So I'll take my time and run through these 26 images. Shouldn't take long. And there you go. Now we're down to 23. Now, I don't feel the need to run through and edit these, but I've had a look. I've nailed these 132 images down to just the 23 I like best. I've marked almost half of them for deletion, and my job when I get home from this day's shoot is so much simpler. Plus, I learned a couple things. I learned to need to be a little bit more precise with making sure that I've got focus nailed when I'm going really wide aperture, maybe zoom in and check that the eyes are actually in focus. And, in one case I learned that, when I'm as close to a subject as I was to my friend Molly photographing her at f1.7 with the Leica Q3, I might need to stop down a little bit to get both of her eyes in focus. These are the lessons that you learn running through your images each day that you're able to apply the next day to even get more keepers in the process. Okay, so you might ask, well, what about making sure that all these images are backed up? And you're 100% right to be thinking about that. If I open this up and look back at my computer, we've ejected the SD card drive automatically after the import. All those photos are now on my data drive, but they're only on that SD card that we copied them from and the data drive. What I would then do is plug in my big backup hard drive. I carry a 4 terabyte Samsung T7 hard drive to use for backup, and I use incremental software here. This is GoodSync. It's a great solution if you're using multiple platforms like I do. It works with network attached storage systems like Synology. It works with Windows. It works with Mac. And it works with Linux. But if you're a completely Mac operating system user, if you're solely in Apple's world, then ChronoSync is also really good incremental backup software where you can create jobs. And so I have a job that backs up my Lightroom catalog drive and another job that backs up my road data hard drive to that big drive. And all I have to do is click Analyze and Sync, and it'll look at what has changed since the last time I synchronized my data on the road to that backup drive. And if things were deleted from my road data drive because they've been moved into my studio storage, they'll get deleted from the backup drive. If things have been added, like these images from the coast, it will add them. So I do incremental backup to yet another hard drive that I would plug in. Boom. And that way, all of my data is both on the data drive on this computer and then that new hard drive that I plug in. And my Lightroom catalog is backed up. I don't use the built-in Lightroom backup, catalog backup. And the reason for that, if we go in here and we have a look at this Lightroom catalog, the only thing that the Lightroom catalog automatic backup does is backs up this one file, the catalog file. And that is the critical file. That is your catalog. But it doesn't back up all your preview files and smart previews and sync data and all these other things that would have to be rebuilt painstakingly from this catalog file. What I prefer to do is back up the entire Lightroom catalog drive. You can see it's less than 1 terabyte. So I just back up all the data in the data drive as well as that Lightroom master catalog so that if anything were to happen, either to this computer or to the Lightroom catalog drive, I've got all of that stuff backed up and I can just keep working right there in the field and bring that all home and not have to worry about it. When I take my camera bag out and leave my laptop and the Lightroom catalog drive in the hotel or in the van, I have those backup drives in a little Pelican case in my backpack. So I have all that data, all the photos and all the Lightroom catalog data with me all the time. I take it out to the restaurant at night, in my little carry backpack, all right? So what do I do when I get home and I've got all this data on my data drive on the computer? It's simple. All I have to do is open up Lightroom, and you can see if I go into the library, if I'm in the library module and I go into folders view, I'm actually looking at the folders. I can see my laptop's operating system drive and I can see my data drive. Those are the only ones that are present right now. And you can see this folder we've created, Oregon Coast Camping. All I would have to do is open up my big Synology network attached storage drive. That could be a big hard drive that you keep at home or in your studio, you plug into your computer. For me, all I have to do is plug this laptop into my 10 gigabit Ethernet system, which runs at about 1 gigabyte a second, and that'll connect me into that big Synology network attached storage system that's got almost 50 terabytes of storage. And all I have to do is grab this folder, click it, hold on to it, and drag it up into 2024. I can't do that right now because that drive is not attached. I'm sitting in my van in a campground. It's not capable for me to be able to do this, but when I'm home connected in, there'll be a green light next to the network attached storage. I can't do that, obviously. And these will not have question marks. They'll be lit up just like this one, and I can just literally drag and drop this in here. And Lightroom will move that folder and all the images and all the metadata associated with it and all the catalog data associated with it right over into that big storage system that I have at home. And then the next time that I go in and use my use my Good Sync software to synchronize that road data, it will delete it all off of my backup drive. It will just take it off because it's no longer there, and it'll bring in whatever I've brought in on the next road trip. It's all automated, a single button click. All right, so there you have it. The whole process took me less than half an hour. I can now plug in my big 4 terabyte backup drive. I keep that on a Samsung T7 Shield that I can keep with me while I'm rolling around through the course of the day tomorrow. And I can go off and have dinner with the family as my images back up here in the van. So I really would advocate that those of you who are wondering about how to keep your stuff backed up in the field, bring along at least a lightweight laptop. Because I run these photo workshops and I need to be able to showcase how to do HDR and panoramic mergers and high-level Photoshop work. I carry this, expensive, fancy, very fast Asus StudioBook Pro 16. Some of you might choose a newer MacBook Pro. Those are very powerful. They're a little bit heavier. The batteries don't last quite as long. I think the MacBook Air is a great tool for most people. It's going to let you just preview your images, find your favorites, mark your deleters, learn from them, and keep everything backed up on fast little external hard drives that are ready for you to move into your system when you get back to the studio or your home. All right. That's my words of advice on that particular topic. Notes to put out, we'll be putting up workshops for Mount Rainier as well as Scotland next year very shortly, so keep an eye out for that. Rick will be giving word. Stay subscribed to the emails to get first notice of that. If you're interested in those, make sure you email rick@hudsonhenry.com. Also, office hours are going to be November 19th, 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll be taking all of your general photographic questions, talking about gear, talking about why gear isn't the most important thing the human brain is, ways to exercise your brain to work differently photographically and stretch your creative visioning. So we'll talk about all that kind of stuff and take your questions. You can join for free. It's just a big free group photography gathering either on Zoom or YouTube Live. When you sign up, you can leave your question and we'll get to as many as we can in the course of the hour. That sign up is up above. It's hudsonhenry.com/office hours. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. I hope everyone out there is staying safe, staying creative. If whatever's going on in your life feels stressful at the moment, your creative journey as a photographer is a great way to just take a deep breath, relax, and find some personal peace and progress through that creative visioning. So hope everybody out there staying safe, and we'll see you next week.